In 2014, a gas station attendant from Vermont died and left behind $8 million. His name was Ronald Read. He drove a secondhand Toyota, pumped gas at Gulf, and swept floors at JCPenney. His neighbors had no idea he was a millionaire. When his will was read, he left $6 million to the local hospital and library. That same decade, a Harvard-educated Merrill Lynch executive named Richard Fuscone went bankrupt. He had the degrees, he had the credentials. He was featured in Crane's 40 Under 40 list of successful businessmen, and he lost everything. So how does a janitor retire with $8 million while a Wall Street executive with an MBA ends up in foreclosure? The answer has almost nothing to do with intelligence, and everything to do with a truth that Morgan Housel spent years figuring out, a truth that most finance experts refuse to admit. Doing well with money has a little to do with how smart you are and a lot to do with how you behave. Morgan Housel, The Psychology of Money. This is the psychology of money, and by the end of this video, you're going to understand why your brain is working against your bank account and what to do about it. The core premise. Morgan Housel spent most of his career as a financial columnist. He wrote at the Motley Fool. He wrote at the Wall Street Journal. He talked to billionaires, fund managers, and economists. And after watching the 2008 financial crisis destroy the savings of people who thought they understood money, he realized something that changed how he thought about wealth forever. Finance is taught as a math problem, but it's actually a behavior problem. You can know every formula in every textbook and still go broke. You can know almost nothing about spreadsheets and die rich. The gap between what we know and what we do is where fortunes are made and lost. Housel's book lays out 20 lessons about how people actually think about money. We're going to focus on the 6 that will change how you handle yours starting today. Lesson 1. No one is crazy. The first lesson is that no one is crazy. Your relationship with money was shaped by experiences you didn't choose. Someone who grew up during the Great Depression sees risk completely differently than someone who came of age during the 2000s bull market. Someone whose parents lost everything in 2008 thinks about home ownership differently than someone whose parents made a fortune flipping houses. Housel points out that the average person born in 1970 saw the stock market go up almost 10 times by the time they were in their 50s. The average person born in 1950 saw essentially no growth in the market during their working years. These two people, looking at the exact same investment advice, will react in completely opposite ways, and both of them will think the other one is insane. Your personal experiences with money make up maybe 0.0000001% of what's happened in the world, but maybe 80% of how you think the world works. What Morgan Housel. This matters because when you see someone making what looks like a dumb financial decision, they're usually not being stupid. They're making a decision that makes perfect sense given the world they've experienced. The same goes for you. The financial common sense you grew up with isn't universal truth. It's just one person's experience of a very specific slice of history. Lesson 2. Luck and risk are siblings. The second lesson is the one that trips up the smartest people. Luck and risk are siblings. Every financial outcome is shaped by forces other than individual effort. Housel tells the story of Bill Gates, who attended one of the only high schools in the world in 1968 that had a computer. Lakeside School in Seattle had a teletype connection that let students access real computing power at a time when most universities didn't have that kind of access. Gates himself has said that without Lakeside, there would be no Microsoft. But there's another kid from that same school named Kent Evans. Kent was Gates's best friend and was just as talented, arguably more so. Before they could start their company, Kent died in a mountaineering accident. The odds of a high school student dying in a mountaineering accident are roughly 1 in a million. Bill Gates experienced 1 in a million luck by attending Lakeside. Kent Evans experienced 1 in a million risk on a mountain. Same school, same era, same talent, wildly different outcomes. Luck and risk are both the reality that every outcome in life is guided by forces other than individual effort. They are so similar that you can't believe in one without equally respecting the other. Morgan Housel. The takeaway isn't that success is random. It's that when you look at billionaires and failures, you're never seeing the whole picture. The person who made a fortune in crypto in 2021 and the person who lost everything in 2022 may have made identical decisions. The difference was timing they didn't control. Be careful who you praise. Be careful who you mock. And be especially careful about copying the specific moves of successful people because you can't copy their luck. Lesson 3. Knowing what enough means. The third lesson might be the most important one in the entire book. It's a concept Housel calls enough. In 2008, Bernie Madoff was running the largest Ponzi scheme in history. But here's what most people don't realize. Before the Ponzi scheme, Madoff was already one of the most successful market makers on Wall Street. His legitimate business was making him somewhere between $25 and $50 million a year. He was already rich beyond imagination. He threw it all away because he didn't know what enough looked like. Raja Gupta was the first Indian-born CEO of McKinsey. He was worth around $100 million. He threw it all away in an insider trading scheme to make a few extra million. He went to prison. His reputation was destroyed. Housel argues that the hardest financial skill isn't picking stocks or timing markets. It's getting the goalpost to stop moving. There is no reason to risk what you have and need for what you don't have and don't need. Morgan Housel: if you can't define what enough means for you, you will always find a way to need more. And the more you have, the more catastrophic the failure mode becomes when you reach for it. There's an old saying that goes like this: if you ask a rich person how much money is enough, the answer is always just a little bit more. Social comparison is the engine of modern misery. There will always be someone richer. There will always be a bigger house, a nicer car, a better vacation. If your financial plan requires you to be ahead of everyone else, you've signed up for a game you can't win. Lesson 4, the magic of compounding. The fourth lesson is about the magic that most people completely underestimate: compounding. Warren Buffett is worth around $100 billion. But here's something almost nobody mentions about Buffett. $81.5 billion of Warren Buffett's $84.5 billion net worth came after his 65th birthday. Our minds are not built to handle such absurdities. Morgan Housel: Buffett has been investing since he was 10 years old. If he had started investing at 30 instead of 10 and retired at 60 instead of continuing for decades, he'd be worth a few $100 million. That's still a lot, but he'd be a footnote, not a legend. The difference isn't that Buffett got better returns than everyone else. His annual returns are good, but not extraordinary. Plenty of investors have matched or beaten his percentage gains. The difference is that he's been compounding for 80 years. Time is the secret ingredient. And the counterintuitive thing about compounding is that almost all the gains happen at the end. This is why most people give up on investing. You put money in for years and nothing seems to happen. Then one day, the numbers start moving in ways that feel impossible. But by then, many people have already pulled out because they got bored or scared. The lesson here is brutal and simple. You don't need to be a genius investor. You need to be an average investor who doesn't quit. Starting earlier matters more than picking better. A mediocre portfolio held for 40 years will destroy a brilliant portfolio held for 10. Lesson 5. Getting rich versus staying rich. The fifth lesson is about why getting rich and staying rich are two completely different skills. Housel points out that the list of people who got rich is long. The list of people who stayed rich is much shorter. Getting wealthy requires taking risks, being optimistic, and putting yourself out there. Staying wealthy requires the opposite. It requires humility, a little bit of paranoia, and the discipline to not lose what you have. The financial graveyards are full of people who made a fortune and then lost it because they couldn't switch gears. They kept taking the same risks that made them rich, not realizing that the game had changed. Survival, Housel argues, is the only strategy that allows compounding to work. You can't get wealthy if you get wiped out along the way. This is why he recommends having a financial plan that can survive a range of outcomes. Not the best case scenario, not even the most likely scenario. The plan needs to survive the worst reasonable scenario. Because if it can't, nothing else matters. One financial catastrophe can erase decades of good decisions. Lesson 6. Wealth is what you don't see. The sixth lesson reframes how most people think about wealth entirely. Wealth is what you don't see. It's the cars not bought, the diamonds not purchased, the watches not worn, the clothes forgone, and the first-class upgrade declined. Morgan Housel. When we see someone driving a $200,000 car, we assume they're rich, but all we actually know is that they have $200,000 less than they had before they bought the car. Or worse, they have a $200,000 loan. Real wealth is the money you didn't spend. It's the investments that are quietly growing. It's the freedom to walk away from a job you hate. It's the ability to absorb an emergency without panic. None of this is visible. Nobody takes pictures of their index fund balance. This creates a bizarre situation where the people who look richest are often the least wealthy, and the people who look ordinary are often sitting on fortunes. Ronald Read, the gas station attendant, looked like he had nothing. He had everything. His neighbors with the fancy cars and big houses may have been one paycheck away from bankruptcy. How to actually apply all of this. So what do you actually do with all of this? Housel ends his book with a few principles that tie everything together. Save money. You don't need a specific reason to save. Saving is a hedge against the surprises life throws at you, and life throws a lot of surprises. Define the cost of your financial goals and accept that the cost is worth paying. Market volatility isn't a fee for bad decisions, it's the entry fee for long-term returns. Be okay with a lot of things going wrong. You can be wrong half the time and still make a fortune because the things that go right tend to compound. Manage your money in a way that helps you sleep at night. If your investment strategy is keeping you awake, it's the wrong strategy, no matter what the numbers say. Controlling your time is the highest dividend money pays. Morgan Housel. The ability to wake up and do what you want, with who you want, for as long as you want, is priceless. The real difference. Ronald Read, the gas station attendant, understood all of this without ever reading a book about it. He saved consistently. He invested in companies he understood. He held on through every crash and every boom. He didn't care what his neighbors drove. He didn't need to prove anything to anyone. And by the time he died, he was worth more than most Wall Street executives who spent their entire careers trying to outsmart the market. Richard Fuscone, the Harvard MBA, knew more about finance than Ronald Read ever would. He could recite formulas Read had never heard of. And he went bankrupt in a foreclosure that made the local papers. This is the great equalizer that the psychology of money reveals. You don't need to be brilliant. You don't need to come from money. You don't need inside information or a fancy degree. You need patience, humility, and the discipline to behave well over a long period of time. The janitor can retire rich, the genius can go broke, and the difference between them has almost nothing to do with what they know and almost everything to do with what they do. If this breakdown was helpful, there's a video on screen now about the one investing mistake that costs regular people the most money over their lifetime. It pairs perfectly with what you just learned. Go watch it next.